Most people think they need motivation, but I firmly believe that motivation fades. I'm here today with my good friend, Eric Prush. Eric is a husband, father, martial artist, and a strength and conditioning coach.
Training is, in a lot of respects, about just checking the box. You have to maintain the habit and check the box no matter what. I came off drugs, got back into jiu-jitsu, kind of rediscovered it. That's when discipline was really needed to do it. I've certainly felt burnout in the past. Frankly, we were all using PEDs. I was becoming pretty aware that these things were having a profoundly negative effect on me psychologically, and I will beat the hell out of them. Just to show, like, dude, either you want to get better or you don't want to get better.
Right.
Like, if you're a 25-year-old kid, prime of his life, I should not be able to do this to you.
In martial arts, in music, in academia, the people that did me the most justice are the ones that told me you're selling yourself short. Welcome back to another episode of Candid Minds with Dr. T. I'm here today with my good friend, Eric Prush. Eric is a husband, father, martial artist, and a strength and conditioning coach. And we're going to talk today about the fact that discipline isn't motivation. It's actually a part of your identity. Now, most people think they need motivation, but I firmly believe that motivation fades. And what lasts is that it's a part of your identity in terms of what you want to do moving forward. It becomes a way of life. Now, given your experience as a martial artist and a strength and conditioning coach, I'm curious, it took a lot of discipline to become good at these things, whether it's training,
Fair enough,
jiu-jitsu,
yes.
Whatever you took on. When did it transition from being a routine or a workout to something that you don't know anything else?
It's a great question. I think I used to be a big football fan when I was younger, and I remember seeing this interview with Lawrence Taylor, who's a famous linebacker for the New York Giants, where he said he stopped playing football, or at least stopped playing hard, when football went from an adventure to a job. Okay, and for him, it was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I can understand that because you're running into people full speed. It's a violent game. There's a lot of preparation. I think training for me, in particular lifting, not so much jiu-jitsu, but in particular lifting and the conditioning and strength aspect of it, I think it felt like an adventure from high school all the way to about age 29. I was competing in powerlifting. I started jiu-jitsu when I was 19. That's got to be 2005 or 6, something like that. Trained for 3 years, had a couple injuries, got burnt out, took some time off, and got into competitive lifting. And every session, when you know that a meet is coming, is just aggressive. It's intense. I had a crew full of total nut jobs, like mentally ill freakazoids that I was lifting with 4 days a week. Every session was competition. It was always fun. But towards the tail end of my lifting career, I mean, frankly, we were all using PEDs. I was becoming pretty aware that these things were having a profoundly negative effect on me psychologically. I mean, physically, it creeps up on you. You don't necessarily notice it, but I had met my now wife, and I was like, I'm going to blow this thing up if I don't get myself under control. And so I came off drugs, got back into jiu-jitsu, kind of rediscovered it. And I think at that point, when lifting was no longer the adventure, it was no longer the competitive focus, it was something I did to support jiu-jitsu and just long-term health, I think that's when discipline was really needed to do it. Because I was actually no longer motivated to lift because I was a very good lifter. I probably have never lost a round on the jiu-jitsu mat because of strength. I've lost because of technique all the time. I've lost because of cardiovascular conditioning all the time. And it was kind of like, well, what's the point of going to do this if I'm not smashing new records and getting more and more jacked? And that's when I felt like lifting had to become like brushing my teeth. It had to be something that I did no matter what, whether it was fun or not, so I could reap the long-term benefits. But I think for a long time it felt like an adventure. But when I realized that I couldn't push the training forward and get big and strong and jacked and be a good grappler, I had to really change my relationship, in particular with lifting weights, because or else I wouldn't have done it, quite frankly.
So if someone's listening and their mental health professional, psychiatrists, therapists talk about them introducing more discipline into their life, how does one even know if they are disciplined? What would you do to test if they're going through their routine and you're telling them, you need more discipline, they could look at you and say, I am disciplined. When does it get pressure tested, and what does that even look like?
So it's funny. I've struggled with that. And I actually have a friend who has a master's in psychology. He's not a doctor like you. Okay. And I remember years ago calling him up, and I'm like, man, I just feel like I'm not disciplined. I can't push myself to do the things I don't want to do. And he was like, Eric, how much would you say you enjoy the day-to-day aspects of running your business? And I was like, not at all. And he was like, do you still do them? I was like, yeah. He's like, I'd actually say you're pretty disciplined then. Right. And kind of realizing, oh, wait, like I am disciplined, but maybe there's a finite amount of energy and willpower in my day that might be keeping me from committing to new things. Right. So odds are you have a little bit of discipline. You get up and go to work. Hopefully you have hygiene. You spend time with your kids, whatever. These are basic things that you could build off of. And just a question of when the motivation strikes, you start the new thing. And I think you have to set parameters like I'm going to train 4 days a week at this time. And you have to just keep doing it. In the beginning, it'll be easy because it's fun and it's new and you're seeing progress very, very quickly. But eventually it has to just be ironed into your schedule and you just do it no matter what. I think that's where the kind of motivation, discipline kind of intertwine. You have to take advantage of the motivation when it's there to add a new factor to your life.
Yeah, it actually crossed my mind this morning. I was at a concert last night. I didn't go to bed until 2. I usually wake up at 5 to go to the gym.
Yeah, bro.
That's only 3 hours of sleep.
Brutal.
And when my alarm rang this morning, and I knew we were doing this episode, I was like, if I don't go today at 5, I'm going against everything I'm about to talk about on this episode. Yeah. And I was like, I got to stay true to my word. And this is, in my head, I was like, this is a test of discipline.
For sure.
If you ask me if I want to go, no, I only slept 3 hours. I'm exhausted. I'm actually exhausted right now. But I was like, I'm going to push through because if I'm going to go on here and preach about doing things even when you don't want to because you know that at the end it's part of a greater goal and you're working towards something, that's a true test of your discipline.
For sure. And also training, I think it took me a long time to understand this. I mean, I think when I finally did, I had a lot more success. Yeah, you wake up you go to train on 3 hours sleep, or, maybe you're feeling a little overtrained, run down, you don't want to go to jiu-jitsu. And you kind of say to yourself, well, I'm not going to hit a PR today, right? I'm not going to have a great workout. And you might use that to rationalize, your decision to not go train. But training is, in a lot of respects, about just checking the box.
Yeah.
And you really win just by checking the box. Now, of course, you do have to actually try. And when you went and trained, you probably gave the best effort you were capable of on 3 hours of sleep. Now, It's not 8 hours of sleep effort, but it's the best you could do in any given day.
Yeah, I told myself I'm here. That's something.
Exactly. And that stuff, I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to succeed. We look at, and this is kind of trite, but it's like you look at social media, everyone's on steroids, everyone's filming their workouts like every single day of their life is the highlight reel from a Rocky montage.
Yeah. I trip on tripods while I'm working out, and I'm like, it's like a hazard.
Yes, it's a legitimate hazard, and it makes me feel old because I'm like, I remember the days when I could just train in peace.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the bitter old guy, but like it is objectively a worse experience.
Yeah. If you ever go right when high school lets out, my gym's across from a high school. Worst time to show up at the gym.
Horrible. It's always been bad, but that was before the cameras.
Yeah.
That's when everyone lifted just chest and biceps, no form. Yeah. Everyone's screaming.
Yeah.
People taking their shirts off now, but it's out of control. But I do think training is about ultimately checking the box. Again, you want to do it with some intensity. You want to, as time goes on, you learn exactly how much effort needs to be put in to accomplish your goals, and you do that and you go home. But it's really about maintaining the habit. I meant to, are you a big fan of mixed martial arts at all?
To watch, yeah.
To watch. One of my all-time favorite fighters was Randy Couture, Randy the Natural Couture.
Sure.
So he didn't start fighting professionally till he was like 35. Okay. At this point, he was already one of the best Greco-Roman wrestlers in the United States, failed to make the Olympic team a couple times, and he decides, I'm going all in on MMA, and he has this great career. I remember listening to this podcast clip with Chael Sonnen, who trained on the same team, Team Quest in Oregon. And he said every Monday after Randy Couture fought, he was still at the gym. He might not have trained, he might have been really beat up, but just to make sure that he protected the habit and didn't fill that time with something else, he went and showed up at the gym. And I've seen that so much with clients that take long breaks, and they could be for legitimate reasons. They could have been injured, you have a kid, but this time you spend going to the gym, you will fill it with something else. And now you're going to feel like you're giving something up to go back to the gym.
Yep.
And sometimes that's not a sacrifice that you want to make. Maybe it's time with your wife, maybe it's hanging out with your friends or doing something stupid like playing video games, which it's not totally stupid, but your health is more important.
Yeah.
You have to maintain the habit and check the box no matter what.
So my son plays lacrosse, and when he got injured, we still went to all the games.
Yep.
And he sat on the bench, and he kept asking, what's the point of being here if I can't play? I said, listen, you're here to support your team. That's something.
Yes,
right? You would be here if you were able to play. Therefore, we need to be here either way. It's on our schedule. We don't have anything else scheduled.
exactly.
Your calendar says to be here. I do what the calendar says.
Exactly. And you also don't know what he's going to fill that time with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You wind up, like, video games are fun. They're dopamine traps, right?
Sure.
It's easy to get hooked on that and then think, well, this is more fun. I don't want to do this other thing, even though the other thing is, yes, it's more challenging, but certainly has greater benefits to physical and spiritual development. Check the box. You have to show up. You made the time. You knew you were supposed to be there every single weekend. When you signed the paper to join the team, show up and play.
Yeah.
Period.
And it's also good sportsmanship. It shows your teammates that you care. It's a win-win all around.
Exactly.
You know, in psychiatry, when we deal with a patient that has depression, there's something called behavioral activation. And it's the concept of if you're depressed and you feel like you can't do anything, you have no interest in doing anything, you should force yourself to do stuff. You should get up and as much as you can, get back to your routine. If that's making your bed, if that's brushing your teeth, if it's showering, if it's going to work, if it's going to the gym, going for a walk, whatever it is, try to forcefully incorporate portions of your routine back into your life. And one of the things that we get pushback on is, well, what if I start doing that and I burn out? And recently a patient actually mentioned that to me, and I was thinking about discipline, and I was thinking about this episode, that do you think there is a time where excessive discipline could backfire and lead to burnout? Meaning you drank too much Kool-Aid and you can't even reject when your body's telling you like you shouldn't be going. You've overdone it.
I think it kind of reminds me. It's like almost a certain philosophy in martial arts where you have to learn the moves before you can forget them and create on your own, right? If you go to learn jiu-jitsu, an instructor is going to show you techniques and systems, and in the beginning, that's all you're going to know. Those are your only moves. And then over time, you're going to learn to create and you're going to learn to forget some of those rules. Maybe they don't apply to your body type or you like breaking those rules because the situations they create on the mat, you actually might have an advantage in, right? I think the structure kind of needs to be imparted upon us by hopefully our parents or authority figures in our life. And then as time goes on, you learn through trial and error when there are exceptions to those rules and when they need to be made. I've certainly felt burnout in the past. There's a reason why I took 6 years off from jiu-jitsu. I was training 12 times a week. At the time, jiu-jitsu wasn't then what it is now. There wasn't as many techniques. There wasn't as many good coaches. I felt like my progress was not lining up with my effort, and I took 6 years off. Now, it was a great path. I'm glad I took it. I never would have opened my gym. I think there was a little bit of God working on me in that regard. I would totally do it again. But yeah, it totally burned me out. But because of that experience...
Did you identify as quitting then or taking time off?
I always intended to come back. And I also, in my mind, it's a great question. I never felt like I was quitting in this. I was still looking for another challenge. I think my son is 1 and my daughter is 5. And if they tell me they don't want to play a sport because they want to play another sport, or they want to do another activity, as long as the season is over, that would be my rule. You don't quit in the middle of the season. I'm fine with you going on to another interest as long as it challenges you and helps you grow as a person. So in my mind, I wanted to scratch that itch of being big and strong and go down that road. And I kind of felt like I had to do it to realize that it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. But I didn't view it as quitting because it wasn't like I replaced it by sitting home and doing nonsense. I was already on to the next phase of my journey, which still involved discipline. It was just a different sport.
So what advice would you give somebody who feels like whatever they're doing just isn't satisfying, but they want the discipline, they want to try something else and not to quit? How would you go about that if you were to...
All I could tell you is something I've learned. This is definitely what I'm going to tell my kids. So this is the best advice I could possibly give. It's also what I've learned from coaching athletes now for almost 20 years is all of us have innate talents in ourselves. We're good at something. Okay. And I think you owe it to yourself to explore as many avenues as possible to figure out what your gifts are. And I think people are almost always going to be very passionate about the things that they are good at. And for obvious reasons, right? They get status for being at the top of the hierarchy. Hopefully they like to give back, which also gives them status. You're the man, but you're helping people. You're bringing people up. I think it's find what you're good at. Experiment and find what you're good at, and then go all in on that, right? Try not to spin your wheels on something that maybe you're not meant to do. And that could be tough because there are phases of everything that you suck and you will only get your ass kicked for a long time. But that's why you have coaches and hopefully parents who have an eye for that sort of thing and might try to delicately push you in the right direction. I think if you start to see success and progress, you will stay committed, right? And I think it's also a great point. Maybe you have to reevaluate your approach. Like anyone can get shredded. Not everyone can be on the Mr. Olympia stage, but anyone can get shredded. If you're not losing fat, there's something wrong with your approach. It doesn't mean that you should quit. It just means you might be doing it incorrectly. So it's A, are we doing the right thing for what I'm naturally talented at? And if I am, B, am I actually following the right approach for it? And if you're not, well then let's revisit it. And I think that's probably what I would tell anyone who's feeling burnt out or they're feeling, oh, I'm not reaping what I want to sow here. Figure it out. You could find a path, and then we can always adjust that path on an as-needed basis.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think one of the things I try to direct patients to do when they look at that path is to try to pull objective data. And there's a fear that discomfort will lead to more discomfort, which people interpret as failure. And sometimes actually discomfort is growth. And it's hard to tell them apart. And that's usually when I try to ask them, well, show me the data. What are you basing that on? Are people telling you that you're not doing the right thing? That this isn't a good fit for you, that you don't have the natural talent, you haven't been progressing despite following the right plan? Or are you not showing up? Are you not doing anything? Are you not going? Are you going once a month and not seeing results? And then when you look at the data, people's perspective really changes.
Oh, for sure.
So you got to really kind of become objective and ask yourself, what have you done? If you're going to call it and quote unquote quit, you really need to sit down and write everything you've done to assess that you've done it all right and the data really does support that this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think it's a Bruce Lee quote, but who knows? There's so many things that are falsely attributed. It's like when you know the way you see it in all things, what you're describing is a conversation I've had with hundreds of fat loss clients. Like, well, what are you actually eating?
Right.
I mean, seriously, are we writing this stuff down? Do we really know? We don't know, then how can we say it's not working? Show me the data, okay? Show me your heart rate when you're doing your conditioning workouts. Oh, you're not in the right zones? That's why we're not seeing improvement. If you come to me and you just say, this isn't working, I'm going to ask why. Okay, A, you hired me, I want to help you, but B, I want to be the best coach I can possibly be. I'm going to have a serious problem if my methods don't work. You know what I mean? So I think it is important. You should have some sort of objective data for whatever you're trying to improve upon. It's easier in some sports than it is in others, right? I mean, if you're in endurance or strength sports where we have weight that we track or we have times or power output, certainly much, much easier, but there's always some way to look back and be like, am I actually taking the steps? Yeah. And if you are and it's not working, okay, let's talk. But if you're not even taking the steps, what are we doing?
Yeah, I had this with my son in soccer. We did one season. At the end of the season, he's like, I'm not really feeling it. Do you think I'm a good soccer player? I'm like, I got to tell you, I don't think soccer is our calling.
Yeah.
Like I'm just being really honest with you. And he's like, that's what I thought too. And I'm like, I hope I'm not upsetting you. And he's like, no, I agree. I don't think this is for me. And I'm like, all right, is there something you like that you see? And he's like, I really like lacrosse. I'm like, all right, I'll get you a stick. Let's see how you do. It's worth giving it a shot.
Yeah.
Put him on the field. Kid has it.
There we go.
So I think being honest, like, this isn't advice to an individual, it's advice to those around them. Be honest with people, because the worst thing you could do to somebody who doesn't realize that something's not for them is to keep telling them that this is, you're really cut out for this.
I've seen that so much, man.
It's so unfair.
I've seen that so much. My first job as a strength and conditioning coach, my boss subleased a small corner in a wrestling room. And it was Volgar Honors Wrestling. Volgar is he's a world champion, Olympic medalist from the Soviet Union.
Yeah, his sons went to Cornell.
Exactly, yes. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yep.
Dix Hills.
100%, yeah. And there were kids in that room that had it, and there were kids who were being lied to, and, dude, they were getting killed in there. And it was like, dude, at what point, I mean, you can't even get a takedown in 3 years. Maybe
still trying.
Yeah. I respect it, but like someone is giving you the bad advice here, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's important to be around mentors that could be honest.
I wish I had that. I didn't, and I think it cost me a lot of time and money as a younger guy. That's why I'm kind of like so obsessed with mentoring young guys now, because I'm like, oh, wow, you could actually save 10 years of your life if you don't go down this dark alley or you don't waste time. You know what I mean? I totally agree. And it takes a community to raise one good person.
That is true. Because I could tell you in martial arts, in music, in academia, the people that did me the most justice are the ones that told me you're selling yourself short. Like the ones that told me, I don't know what you're doing, but the fact that you're not doing this is really, really messed up, because if you did actually put 110% effort into this, you'd crush it. But because you're half-assing this, and I don't know what you're spending your time on, it's a shame. Because there's people who would love to be in your seat right now and would do anything to be in your seat, and here you are throwing it, into the trash.
I think I needed more people like that around me when I was a kid, to be honest with you. At this point, I feel like I've figured my calling out, but it wasn't easy.
No, it was, I'll tell you, one time I was, one of the first times I was a researcher up in Connecticut, and had a long talk with the chairman of the department that I was kind of throwing my life to waste and not taking it seriously, and I had to have such an opportunity, and I'm neglecting it, and I didn't care. I was like, okay. I was like, okay. And then I went up to present my research, and he raised his hand. I was like, yeah, go ahead. You have a question?
Oh, boy.
Right. And he asked me a question. I remember the whole thing. He asked me, where's the data for what you're saying? And I kept trying to like wiggle my way around it, and he would not give up. And it was pretty humiliating. I still have like PTSD from being on stage in front of all these doctors. It was pretty bad.
Okay.
And he wasn't the type of guy you can show up at his office unannounced. But after this thing, my ears were like bright red, and I stormed upstairs into his office, and his assistant's like, you don't have a meeting scheduled.
Like, yes, I do, actually.
I'm like, I was like, I don't need a meeting scheduled. I'm about to like turn this entire office upside down. And I walk into his office, and he's like, I had a feeling you'd come after the presentation. I was like, what the hell was that? What was that? And he's like, how did it feel? I'm like, not good. Not like, why would you ask all those questions? We worked on this project together. And he's like, because you're not taking it seriously. If you're not going to take it seriously, and you're not going to be prepared, then you got to face the consequences. And I tried to warn you last week, and I tried to warn you the week before, that you are blowing a huge opportunity. You want to treat it like a joke. That's fine. Go up there, but I will make a joke out of you. And that actually, to this day, first of all, he's like a father and an amazing mentor. But that conversation was pivotal in my career. Because I was like, all right, I will not make it a joke. I will roll up my sleeves and let's do this right.
I've done that in a less intense way, because you're like on stage in front of you're like people that you want their respect. That's, dude, I'm gonna have a nightmare about that myself tonight. Yeah. But there have been times when I'm like, I teach jiu-jitsu a couple days a week, and I'll meet like a younger kid. I'm 39 years old. Like, you got guys that are in their athletic prime, and they tell me they want to compete seriously, and they're always talking about it, and they say they take their training seriously, and they don't. And I will beat the hell out of them, just to show, like, dude, either you want to get better or you don't want to get better.
Right.
Like, if you're a 25-year-old kid, prime of his life, I should not be able to do this to you. You should feel ashamed that a 40-year-old dad just whooped your ass this bad. Right. But they need to hear it, because it's either I'm gonna start training hard, or this is gonna be something I do 2 days a week as a hobby, and that's that. But make up your mind.
100%.
Don't sit in the middle. The middle's where you get killed.
Yeah.
One side of the road or the other, not in the middle of traffic.
Exactly. No, 100%. So using all this advice, what's next for you?
You mean, like, be more specific for me.
Professionally, so, I mean, you've figured out. We're talking about discipline. We're talking about motivation. We're talking about doing all these things to be successful. You're pursuing martial arts and strength and conditioning. But how do you want to apply all these concepts to your future goals?
Question. So I tell you right now, my immediate goal is to get the hell out of New York. Okay. Now, the way that applies to this is, I told my wife, I was like, listen, we're not leaving this state until I get my black belt from Jason Rao, because he's given out less than 10 black belts. I don't want to go to some other state where some guy who just met me gives me a black belt, because the way jiu-jitsu works, someone gives you a black belt, they kind of take ownership of you as a practitioner for the rest of your life. Sure. So it does matter. No one asks you where you got your blue belt. They only ask you where you got whatever belt you have, they'll ask. But if you have a black belt, they want to know where you got the black belt, right? And so for me, it's been very much about taking my training as seriously as possible in this window where it's like, I have to check this box before I get the hell out of New York. So it's been show up no matter what. Every week I know what sessions that I have to make, okay? Those come first over any other type of training. So, like, if I'm going to miss a lift, okay, I have to get this black belt. If I'm going to miss a run, okay, I have to get this black belt. The only thing it doesn't come in front of is family and professional obligations, but all other types of training are out the window, okay? I'm in constant communication with Nick. Hey, what do I have to work on, okay? Or this is what Jason told me I have to work on. I'm telling you this so you can hold me accountable. So if you see me messing around, going around, and just maybe playing some different game that makes me feel good but isn't actually improving my jiu-jitsu, you got to come up and tell me right away, what are you doing?
And do you know, just to cut you off though, is publicly announcing goals, research shows that it increases the likelihood of you actually achieving them exponentially.
All
So,
right, there we go.
So if you announce to people that you're going to do something, or you're going to go somewhere, you're going to lose weight, or you're going to train, or you're going to compete, if you keep it to yourself, the chances of you not doing it are very high. If you announce it to people, you've created an obligation now that has a different trajectory in terms of success rate.
And that's interesting. I first of all, I totally agree with that. It's interesting. I wonder what the motivators is. Is it just sheer pride? Like, I'm not going to fail when I told people? Like, I have no idea, but
And accountability, yeah.
for sure. And, I guess another goal of mine is, like, again, at almost 40, I'm not going to be a world champion, right? I love to train. I love to stay in shape. But I think the next phase of my life is to apply the discipline, the theme of this conversation, that I've learned from jiu-jitsu, from martial arts, to take, I guess we could say, podcasting or just communicating with other people to the next level. It's taken me almost 4 decades to figure out that maybe my best attribute is my ability to communicate. And I guess I wanted it to be something else. When you're a young guy, you see athletes and rock stars are the people making the most money, and we think we're supposed to be that talented and successful at such a young age, but life is actually quite the opposite. If you're in business, your earning potential is usually later, right? Mm-hmm. These things are essentially based on youth, where everything else is going to be on experience and acquiring skill. So for me, yes, I still want to coach people, but I would like to be able to deliver my message to more and more people in as many platforms as possible. Have the coaching business, but ultimately I see myself being a speaker, a podcaster, for what it's worth. That's, I think, really where my talents lie. And I guess you could say a leader. That's really what I want. And I think once I check this black belt box, some of that time that I'm putting into it will go into that. But the lessons that I've learned from it will no doubt help me succeed in those endeavors.
Well, I do certainly wish you the best in that goal.
Of course, thank you.
Look forward to celebrating with you. You're obviously welcome here as a podcast guest anytime. To our listeners, it's important to remember that discipline isn't about just doing more, but doing it no matter what, and staying true to yourself and staying committed. So we appreciate you for joining us today, Eric. Thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you back here again soon.
My pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.